Man, let's kill that bass. Alright, let's do this.
I'm on the air, we got this pockets flow. It's me and Tony on the mics, we gotta let you know of current events, little gaming, sprinkle in some entertainment. We stay humble, but our moms still think we're famous. Turn up the bass and baby, maybe let that magic flow. Our spoken word is all the things you really wanna know. Having a good time on the show, T-Bows and Matty G. Tune in and hit subscribe and join us on the FAP.
Welcome back to the Freaking Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Bowes, and unfortunately, Matty G could not join us today. But as always, we will fill the time with another wonderful guest. And we have today Tim Venerosa from the band, and he's the guitarist for the band True Villains out of Nashville. Tim, thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here.
We're super excited. You and I were talking just briefly before the show that, of course, things are opened up in the Nashville area and, concerts are going. So, unfortunately, we have limited time with Tim today because he's right off to a gig immediately right after this interview. So I was glad that you're able to find a little quiet place instead of just doing it right outside the setup. So
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So before we get going today, how about we talk about a little fun news that we've come across?
Right.
The first one is a mom, of course, maybe you've seen this on the internet, but a mom was mortified to find out that police swarming her house after neighbors spot a dead body in her backyard. So what happened was this mom had been out shopping with her child, and apparently earlier in the day, she was doing some gardening in the backyard, and they'd pulled some Halloween props because they're a really big Halloween family, and they'd pulled it aside, and one of them was what looked like a body in a bunch of garbage bags. And what happened was, I guess 2 or 3 neighbors had all seen this body lying on the yard, and all decided to call the police. So when, of course, the woman came home, there was 10 police officers swarming her house. And she, of course, thought there was something funny going on, and that was maybe one of the neighbors, because I guess she had some problematic neighbors. So she says, "What did you do?" And they turned around and said, "No, they're here for you." So,
oh, man.
Of course, in a bit of a panic, she went in, she tried to explain things. They said that someone had called about a body in the yard. She started kind of laughing, saying, "Oh no, it's a Christmas decoration or a Halloween decoration." And we're a big Halloween family, so this is just a prop. It's nothing more than that. And she says, well, look at it. It doesn't have any legs. They said, "Well, you could have chopped them off." To which he said, replied, "Well, did you go through my bins?" And the police got all uneasy and looked at each other like, should we go through their bins? So, and in which case, I guess I'm really surprised in all over this time, nobody actually went to check if there was a body in the bag. So during the whole time, police, of course, are just waiting to nab somebody without actually checking inside the bag and noticing what the problem was. So they did ask her to chop it up and burn it or get rid of it. In which case, she was like, "No, I put a lot of work into this, so I'll just store it till next year."
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I guess you got to be a little bit worried about nosy neighbors.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when it's you're dealing with something that's maybe off Halloween time. So it makes you really realize what you get away with during Halloween, right? I mean, you really could have a body in your backyard and nobody would really think about it because
That's true.
People just assume it's all prop time. So until either it starts stinking or a lot of flies start collecting around it. So I guess for a really good joke, you could pack a whole bunch of old meat in a bag and leave it on your front yard for a couple of weeks, and that would really get people going. So
that'd be awful.
Right. So the next article I come across, which of course I couldn't believe, and of course it was from our good old friends out of the Florida area. So good old Florida.
Man.
Florida man. And of course, this one was, of course, about a man in Florida who returned to find his $6 million home being used for a wedding without his knowledge. So the story behind this was, I guess this man was looking to sell his home. So there had been a lot of people that had come through, and they were kind of looking at it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got like, sit-in movie theaters, bowling alleys, swimming pools. It's like a complete oasis. And a couple, or one man, had really showed interest into it. So I guess he started asking a bunch of questions, found out that the owner wasn't around. So he decided to plan his wedding to his wife at that location. But the funniest thing is, they put out their invitation stating, "Come to our dream home and estate for this wedding." So they had everybody roped into thinking it was actually their place. But what happened was, the owner came back on the actual day of the wedding to finding hundreds of people around the place, and calling the police, saying, "There's a bunch of people on my property, all these intruders," and they did come in and escort everybody out. But the excuse that, that the man and woman gave, or the bride and groom gave to him, was this was God's plan. It was a sign that we were meant to be married here. So I feel like a total extreme. Like, I don't know, where do you go with that? I mean,
It's pretty clever, I guess. Just unfortunate timing. The guy actually came back.
right? I think with a $6 million home, you would have a better security system.
Yeah,
In my
yeah,
opinion,
you'd hope.
right? Like, you can't afford a Nest camera or something at this
Yeah.
point, or one of the Ring doorbells where you would have seen a bunch of people outside your house. So,
Yeah, you would think, right?
oh man, that could have been totally avoided. He could have had everybody cleared out before then. So.
Bizarre.
So thanks again for joining us today. Just to so we had said earlier in the show, you are the guitarist for True Villains, and
Yes.
this is a phenomenal band. I mean, I was listening to the tracks. Actually, I've been listening to it probably all week. It's
Thanks.
so you got some amazing songs, and why don't you give us a little history about how this, like, you got a little bit of inspiration, I guess. You were playing a hometown gig, and you just happened to be spotted by the right person at the right time.
Yeah, that's as far as it goes with working with the producer that we've been with, Nick Villainous, who's a legend in the rock world.
Yes.
We had a mutual friend, and he was like, "Dude, he's got to check out the band." Blah blah blah. So he actually brought him to a gig that we were playing in Nashville. It was not really an ideal, venue or sound situation for someone like that to check us out in.
Yep.
But he ended up coming out, and he dug it, and he reached out to us, and was like, "Yeah, let's get in the studio and do some tracks." So
That's amazing. So yeah, I mean, it's great that you've got friends that like truly believe in you, think you've got an amazing sound. But Nick, of course, is very famous for working with Foo Fighters and Alice in Chains, and a lot of amazing big bands. So like, you're
yeah,
obviously under a fantastic production team right now, if you're with this man. And you guys have the sound, like the music is so you've got this kind of like power chord band. I know with genres over the last years, it's kind of hard to place. They say, "Oh, is it heavy metal? Is it rock and roll? Is it, like, I mean, back in the day, it used to be like there was country music, there was rock and roll, and there was jazz,
yeah.
and then the music evolves, and you get all these different different genres out there. So I definitely feel that you've got a great sound that people really need to get out and listen to. And like, how did the band all come together, I guess, at this point?
Well, it's I'll try to summarize it, but the drummer Matt and myself, we had known each other because we both attended Musicians Institute in L.A.
Okay.
So we had met out there in like 2011, I believe, and then I moved here, and then he moved here maybe a year or two after I did, and we kind of reconnected, and both of us were doing the sideman thing, like touring with all the country artists and doing whatever to pay the bills.
Yep.
And then, it was just one of those things. My ultimate goal ever since I was a teenager that I've tried to keep alive was that I wanted to be in an original rock band. So everyone I would meet on the other side of it doing the sideman stuff, I would say, "Hey, do you know any like decent rock singers?" So trying to hunt down the vocalist, because the rest of the pieces, can come together easier than the vocalist, right?
Yes,
So
that's right.
anyways, Matt and I started jamming. We ended up finding a guy we started jamming, you know, wrote some cool songs, but it didn't end up working out with the original singer that we had. And I just as like a Hail Mary had thrown an ad up on Craigslist. And Bo, our current singer, actually replied to it. He was living in Minnesota at the time. You know, we had a little FaceTime meeting with him just like this, and he was like, "Yeah, you guys seem cool. Like, I'll move." And then 2 weeks later, you know, he was
Wow.
sleeping. He was sleeping on my couch, and we went and jammed. We rented out a rehearsal studio for a couple of days. Went and jammed, wrote a couple songs, and you know, the chemistry was just it was great. So just been working since then. You know, trying to build it into something.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny. You've got a true band story, right? I mean, you grow up, you always want to be a musician. And I always kind of wondered that with a lot of people who get into the music, like they're just like, oh, I just pick up a guitar. I like to play. It was kind of one of those things. But a lot of people are just like, no, I'm going to be the next, you know, thing, or I'm going to be the next original artist. I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And it's great when you obviously have been sticking your mind to it, and you went through all the right kind of paths, I guess, to get to where you were. But to be able to, it's always very interesting the amount of artists I've seen or I've met that have they met another player at one point, be it guitars or bass or drums, and then they're like, oh, we reconnected, and it just was interesting, and how that reconnecting just instantly forms into something. And no matter if you're playing for other bands, you know, you've got that, hey, you've got a great sound, I really like that, let's jam. And then, you know, you've decided like, hey, this is something we can do despite everybody else in the other bands, right? So and it's always, I always thought it's interesting, you know, for artists, like, how do you start playing with a group and then just kind of decide to go off and do your thing? And how does that go with, like, do you just cut free? Do you just say, hey, no, I'm still going to play with you guys, but I want to build this other thing in the meantime? And how does that go over? How do people react?
It's kind of, you know, in Nashville, most of the guys that do the sideman thing, you're kind of playing with multiple artists in general. You know, because a lot of times not one particular artist works enough for you to sustain life. So you're always kind of, you know, balancing act.
Yep.
At this point, most of us are all doing True Villains exclusively. You know, once in a great while, we'll go off and maybe do something else with somebody that calls us up as individuals. But for the most part, right now, we're doing True Villains exclusively. And, you know, leading up to this point, last year was interesting because a lot of the other situations that we were all gigging, you know, there's a balancing act. True Villains is a priority, but you're gigging around that, especially in town, maybe not going on the road. But since last year, a lot of those gigs have gone away, with people moving away or just not playing anymore or whatever else. But yeah, it's just kind of an understanding. You know, most people understand that they maybe don't work enough for you to live solely off playing with them. Yeah. So it's just kind of thing. As long as you don't stiff people at the last minute, you know, like, hey, I'm not showing up your gig tonight because I have this other gig. You know,
God, that'd be the worst.
That doesn't really bode well for your reputation. But
is there
balancing that?
Yeah. Is there something like in the industry, like, what is the worst part of being in the music industry? Is it when people you're with someone who just isn't committed, or maybe you sign with a production team that you just like, that's not where we wanted to go? Or
you know, for me, speaking of me personally, over the years, there's been a lot of situations while you're in them, you know, it's not maybe the most ideal thing. You complain a lot and you're like, God, this is awful, whatever. But in hindsight, you know, they've all been learning experiences that have led to what I'm doing right now. And, you know, learning how to do things, learning how not to do things. So, you know, anything that I would consider bad over the years that I've been here doing this, I would, in hindsight, they're either, you know, funny stories now or something I learned from. I would say the most challenging thing about it that I don't think a lot of people understand, especially like, just take the band aspect out of it. If you wanted to move to Nashville and be a player, you know, it's just a constant hustle.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get gigs and meeting people and networking, and you know,
it's the place to be, right?
One of those things. Yeah. It's just always, it's basically, you know, it's a business. You have to almost run yourself like a business at that point. You are the owner. You are the product. Yeah. You know, so you're always trying to sell yourself and meet people and do what you got to do to pay the bills. You know.
It must get exhausting after a while, right? I mean, it's hard enough that you have a life in a day and you play all night, and on top of that, you're trying to sell yourself and you're trying to build a brand and a label and all that kind of stuff. So I'd imagine that the life is quite exhausting, especially when you first start off and you're trying to do, like you said, the hustle.
Yeah, It can be, but it's I kind of enjoy the hustle of it all. But
Yeah.
it is, for most people, I'd say it is who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like music is almost my identity, like doing this
Yeah.
stuff. So, and some of my
Yeah,
best friends are all people I've met in town on other gigs, and so
for
it's
sure.
definitely more pros than cons if you can stick it out through the bad times.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, just-
And I guess that's a lot of the issue is the internal struggle with the brand, right? Because you don't, you have 3, 4, 5 guys who just don't always see eye to eye on things. And I can imagine that is a huge stress when not only when you're just trying to play or you're at certain venues that they don't always reach your expectations or something like that. But then on top of that, you've got the exhaustion of moving from one place to another and tearing down and setting up and doing all those things. And no doubt that some people can get tired and cranky and stuff at one point. So
yeah, for sure, it happens. We're most of us are pretty good at communicating. If somebody has an issue with somebody else, you just flat out say it.
yeah,
And
that's
it
the best
doesn't,
way, right? Yeah, yeah,
yeah, try not to let the resentment and all that stuff grow, because I feel like that's been the detriment of a lot of bands.
yeah,
Watching the behind the musics or reading biographies and stuff. It's like small things that turn into massive things because they don't maybe necessarily call them out on it. So
yeah.
so
Well,
we're
I
pretty
can
good. We're
imagine,
pretty good about that.
I can just imagine you writing a biography, and then one of the band members shows up. It's like, 13 years and you've never told me this. You just put it in a book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're pretty good at communicating. It's a team effort at the end of the day. It's not
Yeah,
any one individual.
yeah. It's good. I mean, I guess that's how you make it, right? I mean, if you're gonna work as a group and you as long as you're communicating, you shouldn't hopefully get hit with too many surprises.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it's been pretty good so far. Pretty smooth sailing. So.
Yeah. So you were mentioning earlier that of course you've had some pretty funny stories of past bands or working your way up. What is one of the craziest things that you've kind of come across that you had to look back and laugh?
Oh man, I was on this one gig for a couple years when I first moved here, and the artist manager would drive, and we would always be leaving, in the middle of the night at like midnight after everybody was done with their gigs, or 2 in the morning. He'd meet up for bus call and get in the Sprinter,
Yeah.
and this dude would be driving like 80 miles an hour down the highway, texting the whole time, like chewing sunflower seeds. It was like a thing after a while that you just accept when you get in it. Like, I may die on this on this trip, but kind of is what it is.
Right. Oh,
Fortunately, it was always fine. But that was that was one of my earliest experiences in town.
yeah, yeah.
There's been all kinds of stuff, like vehicles breaking down. I remember one time a vehicle broke down in Alabama, an artist we were playing with, and the artist and drummer taxied all the way back to Nashville, which was like several hours away.
Oh,
And
wow.
then a couple of us had to stay back with the vehicle.
Which is torture in
Just
itself, right? It's warm. It's hot down there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One time I had a wheel fall off a trailer somewhere in Ohio, and then just left the trailer there. And then I think they just sold it to the shop because nobody wanted to go back and get it. So, Oh, I'll tell you. Oh, actually, this reminds me now of the craziest thing that I think I've experienced. I was
Yeah.
on the road coming back from Chicago, and we got back to where our cars were, unloaded the vehicle, unloaded the trailer, and everything. The guy started it back up to move it, and all of
Hmm.
a sudden it started smelling funny, like an electrical fire. So we were like, "Man, what is that?" So he turns it off, and then all of a sudden, like, smoke starts coming out of the ceiling of the thing, and like over the course of the next 10 minutes, the whole Sprinter and trailer is on fire in this guy's driveway, like a monumental fire. And then the fire department, got there like just in the nick of time. They told him that if they had not gotten there when they did, a couple more minutes, it probably would have lit his house on fire. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
that was probably one of the most interesting ones. Yeah, that was wild. I got some videos of that one.
Wow. You see everything, right? I guess
Yeah, it's
if you're not
always
on the
it's
road,
always something.
yeah, yeah. If you're not on the road, you definitely see it from at the concerts or just as you're passing through towns, and you're just like, I bet you see like every one of those memes of like a Walmart in every town. You're just like, oh my god, it's exactly what they say it is.
Yeah, it's all like loves and pilot truck stops. And,
Oh, it's crazy.
It's something. It's not as glorious as some people think it is, but it's always fun. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess when you're in that business, you definitely have to have a certain um, outlook on the life or on the business to be like, no, 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 this is exactly, you just got to roll with it at this point.
yeah, there's kind of somebody I don't remember exactly who said it, but somebody brought up a good point that with anything, any gig, any band you're in, there's like three elements, right? You have the money, the music, and the people. If you can
Yeah.
usually get two of those things, you're doing pretty well. If
Yeah.
two of
It's
those
that
things
Venn
are met on
diagram,
the
right?
gig, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that
If
Venn
you have,
diagram. You'll get two, but you generally can't get all of them.
yeah, if you have all three, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But
That's what
typically, if you
gold
can
rushes
get
are made of.
yeah, typically
Yeah.
as long as you can get two, you'll be doing well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Excellent. As I mentioned, we are limited on time today, so I am trying to watch the clock at the same time, not to hold you up. But how about we'll jump over to the next little section of our show, and we're going to ask you a few quick questions, just for people to get to know you a little bit better.
All right.
And we call these the rapid fire questions. They're normally read by Matty G, but he's not here, so I do try to fill in from him for time to time. So, first question. What is the first or the most memorable dream you had as a child?
Oh man, I don't even know, to be honest. Memorable dream, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. As a child,
Yeah.
that's a good one. I'm not sure, to be honest.
All right. Well, that's okay. You
Yeah.
don't always get them all. What about what's the first thing you remember as a child?
First thing I remember as a child,
Yeah.
probably the first thing I think I remember is climbing out of my crib and sneaking into bed with my mother.
Yeah.
Because
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, she always tells me I was a little nightmare because in the middle of the night I'd like stealthily climb out of my crib and go get in
Yep.
her bed.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's the parents' worst nightmare when they can get out on their own.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my earliest memories.
Okay. Excellent. What is the what is one artist you'd love to work with?
Uh, in what sense? Like a collaboration?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Guns N' Roses and Slash fan. If
Okay.
I,
Yeah.
so that would
Mhm.
be amazing to either tour
Excellent.
with him or tour
Yeah.
with them,
So
tour with him, or do something with him.
yeah, Slash is listening. There
Also,
you go.
Post Malone. Post
Post
Malone, I think
Malone,
would be
yes.
cool.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool dude. I wasn't really
Yeah,
sure when I first saw him. I remember when he kind of came on the scene and I saw him and I was just like, what is going on with this guy? But I really respect where he's coming from and what he's done with the industry. So
yeah.
he does
He's
a lot of
actually a
really good things as well.
pretty legit rock music fan, so it's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
always something that we talk about is like doing a collab with him someday.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'd really look forward to that. Okay, what is the best thing you've ever eaten?
Best thing I've ever eaten. My favorite restaurant anywhere that I've been so far is called El Compadre in Hollywood, California. I'm a
Okay,
huge, I love Mexican food, and that's my favorite Mexican restaurant
excellent.
of all
So
time.
are you like the burrito kind of man, or are you like the chimichangas, or
I like burritos
you're
typically.
you're a burrito man?
I like
Excellent. Yeah.
burritos. I like mole. I like all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
But I tend to order a burrito if I'm really trying to feel a restaurant out. See how it is.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. We've got a lot of burrito places up here nowadays. They seem to be springing up everywhere, and I
Oh yeah,
do enjoy a good burrito, especially more than a lot of other places. I mean, I'd probably take a burrito over a burger place nowadays. So,
yeah,
and that says a lot for me. So,
same.
yeah. All right. So, if what is your favorite brand of guitar?
Gibson,
Gibson.
right,
Okay. Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Good. I was going to say if you said anything else, right? Gibson might be
yeah,
like, we want to talk a little bit more,
yeah.
or
They
someone
have
might come around and say, "Hey, we'll give it a Gibson sign."
that was actually a gift from a friend, but
Oh, excellent.
uh,
Very, very nice.
I have a lot of different guitars. Obviously, they all
Hmm.
serve their purpose, but uh, if I had to bring one guitar to a gig, it would be a Les Paul, most likely.
Les Paul. Yeah. I used to have a Les Paul at one point. It was a beautiful, beautiful guitar. And it's true. Like every guitarist goes through a variety of guitars over their lives, and some of them, you've always got the big names out there, but there's other people out there who will sit back and still say, no, I still love this guitar I had from 30 years ago that came from a no-name brand or something like that, or an old Silver Cadet or something, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So what is what's the best way to place this one? What is your favorite thing to do on a Friday night?
On a Friday night, probably go and if I have the night off, this is
Yeah.
Go to kind of like a relaxed bar and have some cocktails with some friends. That would be my ideal Friday night. Cigar lounge, something like that.
A bar with live music or a bar with just like recorded music?
Something quiet, something low key, like a speakeasy type place, or a cigar lounge.
Excellent. Yeah. So you're
Kinda
more
get away
about
from
the social and chatting and not just sitting around and listening to a band or something.
Yeah. If I do have a weekend off, I kind of like to escape that loud, chaotic environment.
We always thought it was interesting. We had Freddie Bellin from Biff Naked, the bassist for Biff Naked, on last week, and his thing is when he gears down, he loves to go out and listen to live bands and listen to other musicians and stuff. So I guess it depends on what you do and what you play. You might prefer the one way or the other, right? Sometimes you just want your peace and quiet. So
yeah.
But I'm kind of the same way. I do like when you're going to have those social situations, I would much rather sit down and have a few drinks with friends where you can actually talk and you're not overpowered by music. And you're not always lucky to have a good band playing that night.
Yeah.
So
well, Nashville is interesting. Like as far as like going to see live music, a lot of the coolest events happen during the week.
Oh,
like there's a thing called Whiskey Jam on Mondays. That's kind of a Nashville staple. Been doing it forever. There's another thing on Wednesdays that's called Bus Call. And those are just two examples of some really cool events with original music that you can go check out. A lot of it's during the week, and I think the reason for that is that a lot of musicians, a lot of people are out of town on the weekends, or they're all gigging on the weekends. So a lot of my personal going out to see live music happens during the week.
Okay, excellent. Good. I mean, you got the Monday through Friday job. It's just all about music, right? So you take that time down and enjoy your weekends when you can.
Yeah, which is rare, but yeah, it happens once in a while.
For sure. Do you believe in aliens?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. You're not 100%
so. Especially
yet?
since the government's actually been acknowledging that there's some stuff that they can't explain.
We like to talk to them about that every once in a while. It's very interesting how they slip that in amongst a pandemic, right? And
no one's talking about it.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been any conversation about it. I've been really surprised, actually. I'm just like, really? Nobody? Nobody?
Yeah.
So,
I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Clever. Yeah, they're totally clever. So, all right. If you could live through any time, like era, what one would you want to go for?
I mostly, remember the 90s. It's most of my childhood, which was a great era.
Good music.
But if I had to choose one, I'd probably say maybe the 70s and 80s.
70s and 80s, yeah. The height of rock and roll when it was just kind of first starting off. Yeah.
I would have loved to go and see Led Zeppelin, all the legendary Aerosmith, all them back in the day.
Yeah. Absolutely cool. Yeah, for sure. Is there an area the band won't travel to? Have they said like, nah, we're not going there?
No, not really.
No. Okay. So you're not shunning anybody out, right?
No, pretty much do anything.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. So there you go, Florida. You still have a chance.
Our Barry, our bass player, is actually from Florida. He's the Florida
is he?
The band.
Excellent. So there you go. So worst case scenario, if you do the gig down in Florida, you have to try to be like the next Florida man and be at least a good article that that at least brings a laugh to everybody. So and then we'll get to use that in the news here. So.
Yeah.
Excellent. As long as it's not like your bus burning up or the vehicle on fire.
Yeah, I never want to experience that again. It was funny. It was funny in hindsight. It was not really funny in the moment.
Yeah. do you and the band ever pull like practical jokes on each other? Are you that kind of band where you're close enough, like friends / brothers, or?
Yeah, sometimes it's more. I would say it's more like shit talking than it is
Okay.
practical jokes.
Yeah.
We all bust each other's ass a lot. Uh, everybody's got their like I have some things that like I love Starbucks, and there's just certain aspects of things that I like that they bust my ass about. Everybody's got their thing.
That's
It's more
right. Yeah,
of that
Starbucks
than
is a good
like
one.
planned practical jokes, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's always funny because in Canada, of course, you've got your different type of coffee lovers that are out there, but everybody's been very pro Tim Hortons for years and years and years, and then of course Starbucks started making their way in, and I know for the longest time I'm like, ooh, Starbucks, aren't we fancy? And then eventually I realized, what, a cup of coffee actually isn't that much more. I'll go try it out. So I'm just not a fan of the pike roast because it tastes like napalm for some reason. It's just like within an
like burnt
hour,
rubber.
It's like the worst gut rot from pike. It's the only brand or only version of their coffee I cannot stomach. It's really weird. So and that's
I almost exclusively.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, and that's their signature roast is the pike roast. So yeah.
I almost exclusively drink iced coffee, so I don't really drink the pike very often.
Excellent.
I'm originally from upstate New York, so I am familiar with Tim Hortons. There are some Tim Hortons there. But unless it's sub-zero temperatures outside, which I'm sure you can relate to being up in Canada, I don't really drink hot coffee. Like unless it's freezing outside and a hot coffee feels right, 99% of the time I drink iced coffee. So.
Yeah, so we're kind of like that 3/4 throughout the year, right? I mean, our summer is really warm, sometimes too hot, and you don't feel like a hot cup of coffee. But that's why they made air conditioning so that we could just have a hot cup of coffee through the summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do. You in the colder months, you definitely survive on a nice hot cup of coffee for most people. So
yeah. Sure.
If have you tried the nitro cold coffee?
I have. I like
How
it,
is
but I'm still. It's good. It's very smooth.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I have a tap. I don't know if you've ever ordered it. Almost looks like a Guinness or something when they hand it to you.
That's what I was gonna say. All I could think of when I hear this is it's got a. I mean, first of all, you're the right color for a Guinness, anyways. So how close would it be to a Guinness? So it's kind of got that thick, dense smoothness to a cup of coffee versus cold, watery, gross.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit of a coffee fanatic, so I've really narrowed down over time that I just like iced coffee over. Like a lot of people don't realize iced coffee and cold brew are made in two different ways and have two completely different flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And I'm much more of an iced coffee drinker than I am a cold brew drinker.
Wow, look at this, the coffee afficando here.
It's the only way I survive is a healthy dose of coffee every day.
Well, you guys are going to be aiming for a good cold coffee sponsorship at some point. I'll be looking. I'll be looking for the True Villain coffee brand out there one of these days.
And if people stream our songs enough and everything, maybe I can hire a barista, my own personal barista, to come on the road with me. Okay.
that would be a great gig, not only for the barista, but just for you guys to have the coffee all the time. So excellent. So a couple more questions here, and I'm just going to jump out of our regular questions and ask you a couple of things about your songs, of course, The Villain and Blood in the Water. So with The Villain, it was that like a song that was just kind of introducing the brand for the band, or was there like another subset that was behind that?
It just kind of that song actually kind of was one of those ones that almost wrote itself, and that was the first song that we had written after we initially met Nick. And we kind of chatted about things. So that was almost a result of that whole exchange with him,
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those songs that came together within like maybe 30 minutes.
Wow.
And the title mainly came from the lyrical content, honestly. Like it was just, Bo most of the time we're writing, the band will like be piecing together an arrangement, and he'll just be like sitting over there like humming melodies and trying to come up with ideas, and he'll just sing gibberish, and then 9 times out of 10 the gibberish that he sings usually has something cool in it, like some kind of line or something to build off of,
Yeah.
And also the title kind of reworked itself because it was almost like a relaunch of the brand. Post meeting Nick, because some of our earlier stuff that you can dig up some of it online. but it's a little more throwback-ish rock,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know. And then after a couple other bands had come out, you know, it was like we don't want to be like that throwback. We want to kind of meld the two things, the modern element and the classic element.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so the title is appropriate in that sense as well. That it was almost like kind of a relaunch of the band overall, the sound.
For sure, for sure. So speaking of which, that like that throwback, does the band have like any major influences that you go? Like, I mean, you're saying you're a big Slash fan yourself, but as a band as a whole, do you guys have any major influences that you're just like, oh yeah, we really love these guys and we love that sound? And
Yeah, like if I had to list like my top four favorite bands, it would be Guns N' Roses, Metallica, the Black Crowes, and Led Zeppelin, and Aerosmith. You know, I guess that's
excellent.
five. So
Yeah.
those are like I love the more classic kind of stuff. Like I'm not a huge like new metal fan. You know, from like the
Mhm.
early 2000s. I like some of it, but it's not really my thing. Like it doesn't have, to me personally, it doesn't have the energy and the rawness and the attitude of all that rock prior, you
Yeah.
know, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to capture in True Villains. Uh, our bass player likes that more modern kind of heavy stuff, Barry.
Okay.
You know, Bo listens to a lot of newer bands. He also loves, you know, all the same bands mostly that I just listen, like Skid Row and Aerosmith. And he loves Steven Tyler and Sebastian Bach and all that.
Excellent.
Matt's kind of all over the map, you know, listens to a healthy dose of probably way heavier metal than the rest of us. Also likes classic stuff, you know, likes a lot of
Okay.
pop music, which I would say all of us like actually. Pretty good amount of pop music.
Oh, excellent.
And Greg has probably the most diverse taste, you know, the keyboard player.
Yep.
He's not maybe as much of a rock fan as the rest of us, which,
Okay.
you know, it's cool because everybody kind of has their own thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when we write together, everything we write is typically as a group. You know, we get together once or twice a week and write. So it's, you know, you get all these different aspects of it. Because for example, like if I wrote everything myself, everything would probably end up sounding like throwback rock. So it's
Yeah.
cool that
Yeah.
you get. I think that's how the sound has come together because everybody has their own, you know,
Yeah.
little influence that they kind of put in it. So.
Exactly. Because you guys have a pretty unique sound, but at the same time, there is that reminiscence of a little bit more old school rock, which quite frankly I enjoy. I find that people, you know, everything's so saturated with either rap or pop right now. I haven't been hearing as much rock on the radio station, and unless of course you know on satellite you just go right to the rock stations and stuff like that. But it's wonderful to hear, you know, kind of a new take on the old sound, right? And I personally think it's fantastic. So, like I said, it's just kind of you know the villain is kind of made it into my playlist, and I really do enjoy listening to that frequently. And you know, all the songs are fantastic, but that one just kind of really stands out, and it's really really cool. So,
That's my personal favorite of all the new ones as well.
excellent, very cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's that's kind of the goal, you know, is to meld the two things. And one thing about living in Nashville, I guess, is you kind of pick up over time that the song is king, right? Like
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily matter how much flashy guitar solos are in the songs or how complicated this drum part is, or you know, it's kind of the challenge, I guess, or something that it's a challenge and it's something that I think we've all learned from living here is keeping the song cool, but not overcomplicating it, like making it
yeah,
musically interesting, but not, you know, not like self-indulgent, I guess would be the
yeah.
word.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, you look at back at you know in the 70s and even early 80s, the guitar solos that might have been like 4 minutes long. Nobody's going to listen to that nowadays,
yeah,
and it's
it's
unfortunate,
crazy.
right? Because I mean, that's that kind of time where you really get to hear one person's real talent being able to hold on to a solo for so long. And yeah, I think just with technology and video games and everything that's out there, people's attention span for something like that, no matter how good the song or how much they're loving it, nobody sits through a solo that long anymore.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of sad. The villain, actually, you were speaking about that one. That
mhm.
song actually had a somewhat long guitar solo in its original form. And then
Yeah.
when we played it for Nick, he was like, "You're gonna hate me for this, but let's take that solo and break it up into three different sections."
Oh
So,
no.
so if you notice, it has like that it has for one little break, then it has kind of another what would be almost considered a main solo, then it has like a short little outro solo.
Yeah.
So
And
you
that
know, it
was all
ended up
part of
working out.
one
I think it's
that
cool.
was all part of one solo though that they were able to chop up or
No, that's, you know, when we did some pre-production with him, that was like one of the things he tweaked in the arrangement of the song. One of many.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
One of many.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well,
yeah.
you can't win them all, unfortunately, right? And
But
like,
I think I almost think it's cooler, it keeps the song interesting as it goes by. So
yeah, for sure. That's excellent. Well, I won't keep you too much longer because I know you do have that gig that you're going off to. But do you have any? Oh, actually, we do have a question in here quickly, just from one of our audience member here. Would your band ever make songs for video games?
yeah, that's actually something we've been talking about, trying to get some songs placed in, commercials or games or
Yeah,
anything of that sort. But yeah, that would be awesome.
yeah. You guys
A
have
lot a
got
lot
the
of the music in video games are awesome.
Yeah, you
Just
guys
sitting
have the
there.
perfect sound for a video game soundtrack. If it's just like this is going to be like a final charge, or this is going to be like an epic battle moment, like that, it's a perfect song for it. So, especially the
Yeah, it's
villain.
something that we're actively talking about and working on. So hopefully,
Yeah, for sure. Well, you maybe have to check out Ubisoft and stuff, even up in the Canadian market, because they're always looking for sound talent and stuff. So it's quite
okay.
interesting. But
Yeah.
hopefully we'll hear them out there. In the meantime, do you have any social media, anything that you'd like to plug for the show before you head out?
Yeah, everything. Most of all of our stuff is True Villains Nashville. It's our website, Instagram handle, Facebook. Type in facebook.com/True Villains Nashville. Everything's pretty much under that. We
Okay.
did make a TikTok recently. We have not used it yet. It's somewhat new to us, but hopefully we'll be on that train in
All
the
right.
near future. But you can go
Oh,
follow us on there.
perfect.
And yeah, and then we'll be releasing a new single probably within the next 4 weeks, I believe. So
Excellent. I look forward to it. So make sure you toss us a link and we'll or have your person toss us a link and we'll make sure we put that up on the site as a little bit of a follow up and stuff. So in the
absolutely.
meantime, for our audience that is listening on the road and not listening to the live version, we will make sure that of course we put a picture of Tim up on our guest part of our website, as well as any of the links to their social media and how you can get to some of their songs. So check them out, support them, and Tim, I really appreciate you being able to spend some time with us today.
Absolutely. And for anybody watching, keep an eye on our website if you dig the band, because we're going to be hopefully posting up some tour dates for later in the summer and fall in the near future. So
Excellent. So guys, check it out. True Villains. Tim, thanks you very much. I really appreciate the time.
no problem.
Excellent. Take care.
See ya.